What's going on? What's going on? Hey, Cadillac James. What's going on with you? There's a lot going on today. Welcome in, y'all. We are live on TikTok and YouTube, and we'll see how long that stays the case. Good morning, Curtis. How are you? Hey, Beth. A couple of big family shifts happen. Curtis, I'm glad you're doing well. Good morning, gratitude. My air filter has something in it. Let me go turn it off. Beth, I want to hear about your updates with your family. Message me or come into the Discord, especially if you don't have a whole lot of time. A lot of heavy things. All coming out of the dark now. I don't know if you guys know, but our son has been doing a lot of upgrading. Well, you know, we can interpret it as upgrading or deteriorating. I don't know. I'm just, yeah, it's doing a lot of stuff. There's a lot of activity up there. And a lot of, I follow a couple of creators who put out like daily or even weekly updates on the sun. And while the sun's doing these things, I find that it offers us an opportunity for, sure, upgrades, but for clearing, right? Like the stuff that's stuck, light is vibrating at that frequency. That's energy is trying to get through our systems. And if there is something stuck, something misaligned, something out of place, a boulder in the channel that you've been trying to hide for all your life because you don't want to look at the weight of it, you don't want to deal with it, right? Those kinds of things are what we experience when we get upgrades like this, when the sun is doing what it's doing, or when we get the full moon, right? If it's chaotic for us, if it's really difficult for us, a lot of times it really does mean that like we're still out of alignment or we have a lot to process. Those of us who are like, oh my God, I'm just really energized. I'm all, good for you. You have these nice clear channels. So that's great. I might get a little jelly, but also I'm happy for my friends who have nice, easy processing for all of this sunshine upgrade stuff going on. It's been exhausting for me. There's still stuff I'm working on. I'm losing family members, car accidents, truth coming to light. I'm grateful for truth coming to light, right? Sometimes I don't know. I've always said I'd rather know the truth, even if it's hard. I'm not one that wants to sweep things under the rug, and that's hard for some people. So, Beth, reach out. I know you're closer in our community too, so reach out if you need anything, even just to chat about it. Hey, Charity. Yep, I'm live. It's the real time me. Just joining from Pennsylvania, Mr. Marshfellow. How are you? That's good, Beth. All grateful so we can be there. Well, oh, dog. First thing, y'all. Some comments were filtered. Guys, I don't have comment filters on. So if you guys are saying something that your comment's not showing up, then you're like violating whatever TikTok thinks you shouldn't say. I don't have any filters on. So you guys, what the heck? Hi, Juliana. Good morning. Your energy has been don't fail or don't fall. Don't fall. Have I told you lately that I love you? Badass blind woman, I love you too. Vicky, I'm a big fan of the big bowl of tea. I'm trying to get out of coffee. Usually summertime shifts me into tea. No more coffee. I like coffee in the wintertime. So this month, actually, I mean every month, right? Every month we're talking about a different chakra. And I have a book coming out before July 1st about how these patterns are written into our systems through our conditioning, right? And I think this is a big part of the first three chakras, these lower three chakras, when we're talking about early traumas, when we're talking about the ways that we get used to operating, even if it's not really in our truth, and then how to take back our power when we realize we've been operating over here because somebody taught us to operate over here, right? Hold on. I'm going to flip my camera around over here on YouTube because they're both doing opposite things. So I feel like I'm having a discussion with three people here. Hold on. And this month we're talking about the solar plexus. Which is a really important one, especially today, as our friends and neighbors and loved ones are using their will, their power, their personal power to make statements about individuals who are misusing their personal power. But I want to talk a lot today about how that happens and what we can do to address it, right? And yes, part of it is standing in our truth. But what does that even mean when we're talking about how do I want to say it? The simple analogy for it is when the scales are misaligned, your measurement is always going to be askew. And so we may think we have found our purpose or are living in our truth, but it's weighed by a scaled measurement, by a misaligned measurement, right? Or a misunderstood measurement or an out. Yeah. The scales are not. I will get my words gathered today. As soon as I figure out how to flip my camera because it's making me a little bit crazy. I'm going to ask you today to reflect on, as we go through all of this information, I really ask that you reflect on where your inner tyrants are. Where is your inner king? And is that, or queen, and is that king or queen operating in a way that is in the best interest of the entirety of who is inside of you, of what is inside of you, right? We talk a lot about the way that we develop kind of different aspects of self, right? I've got an ego self, I've got my emotional self, I've got my little kid self, I've got my usually like some sort of tyrant or parent sort of energy in there. I like to refer to mine as my pirates, just because that's the imagery that I have. I've got a pirate ship and all these different aspects of me are pirates. And if you might say, I don't have different aspects, I'm just very mono, singular, whatnot. I ask you if you show up exactly the same way in every situation, whether it be at work? Are you going to be, you behave a certain way at work, show up a certain way at work, and hold certain cards closer to your chest at work? And then you're going to be different when you're on a date with your partner or at home with your partner, right? You may hold different cards close to your chest. You may share different aspects of yourself. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about the different characters within you, or I refer to them as my pirates, right? We're not talking about something like, personality split stuff. We're talking about the fact that we are multifaceted, right? Beth, you've been using the pirates as an example, and it's worked so well. Honestly, it helps me understand myself and this process so deeply. And I think one of the most valuable pieces of it is that it allows us to separate our identity of self, of true centered self, with the different manifestations of ego and triggers that happen when we interact with the world, right? These facets are just the parts of ourselves that we show to the world when we're in different situations. But then there's this core self that is our essence, the truth of who we are that never changes, right? And that's what I mean when I'm saying I'm not talking about totally different personalities. We all have that core essence, and then we have different degrees of manifestations of these different aspects of self. And yes, some of us are more consistent. We're the same person at work as we are at home with our partner, as we are with our parents, as we are in different situations, right? And some of us are quite different, quite dynamic, and have certain things that are really only reserved for certain people or certain places, right? But all of that is rooted in the way that our energy body develops, is rooted in the way that our habits, our patterns develop. Our patterns develop our emotional patterns, our thought patterns, our belief systems, the way we perceive the world and ourselves within it. Yeah. So, hello, everyone. I always kind of jump in and start getting going before I say hello. My name is Reverend Deborah. I'm an interfaith minister, a movement facilitator, and dubbed by this lovely community here on TikTok, I'm your shenanigan shaman. So thank you guys for liking my shenanigans, because I like them too. They keep me sane and young. So today we're talking about the solar plexus. This whole year, for those of you who are just joining or new to our space here, we are doing what I'm calling our Inner Light series. And each month we go through a different layer of the energy body. January was the aura. February, the koshas, so the bodies, the selves within our system. So the aura is external, the selves, the koshas are within. Then we spoke about the earth chakras and the minor lower chakras, like the knee chakras, the belly button chakra, and the feet chakras and similar. Let's see. Then we moved to the root chakra, then we moved to the sacral, and now we are in the solar plexus, which means next month we're going to move into the heart, then the throat, then the brow, then the crown, and then up higher ones. Anyway, the whole point for this whole thing is, while you can go out there and you can buy a book on the chakras, and I have some to recommend if you want to do that, you can go search the internet or even ask ChatGPT about your energy system, and get a deeper understanding of it, of the general ideas of energy. But there are pieces that I have found in my own research and in my own experience that weave together things like our psychology and psychological development, social emotional development, along with the stages of our chakra development. And this is why it's really important. What's really important about this is because by looking at these things and the way that they interact, we understand how our personalities are built, how our egos are built, how our triggers, our fears, and our beliefs about ourselves and about the world are built, essentially how the pathways are created and connected, and how those things eventually become the background operation. Yes, some of it's conscious, but the important part about the energy development is those unconscious pieces, the beliefs that operate so quietly in the background that you're not even really thinking about them, right? The way that you move, the way that you hold your body when a certain energy or a certain person comes in the room and you don't even freaking notice it, right? Catch yourself clenching your jaw, or somebody triggers an emotional reaction and you go, I don't know where that came from, or I was not in control, right? We experience these things where something happens that is not conscious, right? And the process of enlightenment is just the process of bringing more consciousness into the parts of ourselves that are unconscious, right? Unconscious being the darkness or being shadow, being unseen, versus conscious being in the light. So, with all that said, I will throw a little plug in there. I do have an inner light map on my shop. The inner light map is meant to help you track your energy body, start to become familiar with your patterns, your triggers, and also to keep track of the tools that I offer. I will be offering another mudra today. And that's for sale in my shop for $5, not on TikTok, because I can't get TikTok shop to work for me, and it causes me too much stress. So if anybody knows how to make TikTok shop work for me and want to help out, I would really appreciate it. Until then, y'all have to go to Patreon. So, sorry. Where's the cap for my beautiful purple pen here? Wink, wink. Oh, I wonder if it rolled down between the couch or something. So where do we start? Where do we start? I usually like to go over the development of the chakras. Let me see if I missed any comments while I was chatting there for a minute. Okay. So the chakra developments, right? How the chakras develop, when the chakras develop. It's, I feel like, let's say, our chakras develop in stages, in a couple of different rotations, right? So we've got our, every few years, we kind of shift, our energy shifts and moves up for the first 25, 26 or so, 24, 25, 26 years of life. So there's that rotation of our chakra development. And then there's the lifelong rotation of our chakra development. And so we can see it through these different lenses of, in our earliest years, in our childhood, we're really trying to understand grounding in our bodies. And then we begin to understand connection and interacting with each other, right? So those stages, for the lifelong stages, the root and the sacral are what we're going through for those first like 20 some years of life. We're really just kind of trying to ground out. We're really trying to figure out existing in the material plane, and how to connect with others and how to get our needs met. And then the sacral chakra talks about intimacy and our closeness, our relationships. And at a different degree than it does up here in the heart. So those are our earliest interactions, right? When we start to do that as like teens or into our early 20s, right? Those are our root and sacral. Katie, hey, I know it's been hard for me to do like one live a week. I've been really missing doing bigger ones, but I had to set the boundary for me to make sure that I am bringing in enough revenue to make sure that it's right appropriate for me to be doing it. I'm the person who will like give away my imbalanced chakras, my solar plexus being a little here and my heart being a little here. I'm like, oh, I'll just give all my classes away and I'll do like 5 or more classes per week or whatever. And I don't need to charge anything. Oh, wait, I can't even turn the internet on anymore because I couldn't pay the bills. So we are down to 1 class a week, unfortunately. But for those of you who have not yet joined, if you want to support what I'm doing so that I can add more classes, go over to Patreon. That's really the only way to do it right now, or trade your time and energy if you have some to help me with editing and things like that so I can get back up to doing those things. So chakras. So as we're going up, the more acute process of our chakra development is that from about birth to somewhere between 6 months to even a year or so, we are working on our root chakra. The root chakra says, am I safe? Right? So our earliest experiences, when we look back at childhood trauma and how childhood trauma or childhood experiences write our personality, that's what we are looking at when we're looking at the chakra development. In Erik Erikson's stages of social emotional development, this is the stage of trust versus mistrust. It's, am I safe in my body? Can I ground my energy out in my body? Or are things going to happen in my body that I can't control, that are scary or dangerous or painful, right? These messages that we receive early in life give us our foundational belief about trust and about our sense of safety in our bodies and in the world. When we move up to the sacral chakra, and depending on how that settles, we may spend more time in the root chakra area trying to ground out for safety, or depending on our constitution, we may pull our energy up right away into that sacral chakra and say, help. The sacral chakra says, I feel. And this is our place where we say, hey, I have a need. So you imagine an infant, right? You're laying there all squishy and happy in your perfect little infinite world. No concept of time, no concept of object permanence. Everything is just this big open reception of experience of being alive. And we move up into our sacral and we say, ooh, I'm uncomfortable. I'm hungry. I'm cold. I sneezed, right? Sometimes babies fart and then it's very scary. It's very, it's very unnerving. So that's another good example actually too, is that babies with things like colic, or if you have an allergy or something like that, it can actually cause an imbalance in the root or sacral chakra, because those are, again, if those are not safe or comfortable experiences, and they, especially if they're prolonged, it can cause our energy to go, ooh, it's not really comfortable to be in my body, right? And that's nobody's fault. This is really important. Why I love looking at the energy body, why I love looking at the chakras, is because we can step away from blaming who did what, when, whatnot. Like that is a whole rabbit hole that actually sometimes will move us away from centeredness and away from our healing. And generate things like guilt, shame, resentment, these other things. And those things are not really the building blocks that get us to clarity. They're the weights that keep us in the process of learning about the things, right? As long as we're holding it, as long as it's here within us, we're going to keep turning it over and over and over again. It's going to keep showing up in our life over and over and over again. Why? Because your energy body's harassing you, because these memories are out to get you, because some part of ego is your enemy. No, actually, because it's just trying to clear your system. It's just trying to clarify these channels. So these things come up again and again and again. I like to think of them like gas in our system, right? When we have something that's not meant to be there, it's going to generate gas. And that gas is an attempt to release this thing from our systems. So when patterns keep patterning, especially the ones that don't feel good, thank you, Glitterbee, especially the ones that don't feel good, we think that there's something wrong. And in reality, it's our systems guiding us to our healing. And this is an important rewrite that narrative in ourselves, right? So many of us got the belief written into us that when we experience pain or discomfort, it's bad and we shouldn't look at it, and we should ignore the emotions or shove them down or put them away, or we should destroy ego, or we should, there's all sorts of misconceptions we have about our body and our mind and our energy being our enemy. And it's not. It's really not. And my mother really helped me with this one, right? When she said, if you make an enemy of yourself, that is a battle you will fight every single day. It will show up every single day. And that will be the war that you wage your entire life long. The question is, do you want to live like that? Do you want to fight with yourself every fucking day? Right? And if you've ever tried to force your mind to do something, or force yourself to quit something, or force yourself, to behave in a way that you really want to on this level, but there's some other unconscious programming still going on that's keeping you from it, right? It's almost impossible to exert that kind of control on your unconscious mind. And so that tells us that this isn't the modality. This isn't the way. That's not the way to realign ourselves through control, through manipulation, through demand, but instead through curiosity and willingness, right? When we show up with those open-handed curiosity, willingness, I don't have to be loving. I don't even have to be patient. I can at the very least be curious and willing about the process that's going on inside of me. And then I have the opportunity to receive insight and understanding, better understanding about myself, so that I can bring myself to healing instead of just shove down that exact same pattern. Let me catch up. I know I missed a couple comments here. Yeah, I keep not remembering when I need to be here, and I need to be here. Make sure if you're in the Discord, we do have a notification that goes out right when I'm live. So if you have your notifications set up, I know you can turn off and on notifications for different channels. So if you're like, I don't want to get all the channels, but I do want certain notifications, you can get those, and let me know if you need help figuring that out with the Discord. Precious time wasted. Side thought. Did we pick the mug because it matched the shirt? I think Glitterbee answered you here. We are talking about the sacral chakra this month. And so all month long, I've been trying to wear and use all my yellow things. And let me tell you, it has been exhausting. My solar plexus is not usually a really huge, it's what I consider. So there's three ways I like to talk about the chakras. One being, I try not to say deficient or like overactive or underactive, but sometimes I can't find a better word. So right now we're just going to go with underactive, overactive, or wounded. So the wounded sacral chakra, or any chakra that's overactive, will be consistently pushing out a whole lot of, or an imbalanced amount of energy. A underactive is going to be weak, not really pushing out a lot of that energy, or maybe have some blockages, right? Somebody who's like closing off their heart, armored their heart, right? Those are that's going to be an underactive sort of situation. But when we talk about wounded, we're talking about something that may be deficient or underactive in certain situations and then lash out. And this I find to have a lot to do with these lower chakras. I think these lower chakras do a lot of that. My center for will, my center for control, right? If it's underactive, and then my system has fucking had enough, then I suddenly turn into this really aggressive or really controlling person. People are like, whoa, where did that come from? That's a wounded chakra. When we find ourselves out of balance and fluctuating to extremes of the chakra. Same with the sacral chakra. The sacral chakra is about our connection and softness and pleasure and movement and joy. So we may deny ourselves pleasure again and again and again and again, and then suddenly go on a bender and eat an entire chocolate cake in a sitting, hiding, one sitting, hiding away somewhere, right? Because of the shame and stuff, whatnot. So those are wounded chakras versus consistently underactive or overactive. And it's important to understand that because they are really dynamic. And in any moment, my solar plexus may suddenly be really big. And in favor of that, it has to take energy from other chakras. You have a finite system of a limited amount of energy in your system. So if my solar plexus is screaming energy out, then it's got to be deficient somewhere else. It's got to take that from somewhere else. Badass Blind Woman, are nightmares stored in a specific chakra? So typically when we deal with nightmares, we're talking about the brow chakra. You want to interact with the brow chakra, specifically the back of the brow chakra. I would even suggest doing things like massaging the back of your neck before bed, maybe having a pillow that's more ergonomic so you can have open up the throat, open up the brow a little bit, and give some ease to the back of the neck. But they can also be rooted in imbalances in lower chakras, right? If my root chakra is out of balance, I'm going to experience a profound amount of fear in my system, and that can manifest as nightmares, but it will cause imbalance here. Not if I'm fearful, it doesn't always mean I'm going to have nightmares. So if I have a fearful or wounded or underactive root chakra and a wounded or underactive brow chakra, maybe overactive brow chakra. If I'm having nightmares, I'm probably having an overactive brow chakra trying to process this shit for me. Okay, now I'm going to catch up on the rest of the comments here. Learning to release the weight of my past was the hardest thing I ever did. Again, this is my favorite way to do that, right? Is just to meet the past, not with blame or shame or like pointing at anything, but to look at it as curious and willing. Interesting that these things occurred, and interesting how they ended up creating patterns in my system. And what a gift that I now get to rearrange those patterns, right? Or take down the armor or discover the me that's within those things or underneath those things. Instead of getting stuck in the loop of that person did that to me, or this awful situation happened and I can never make it unhappen, right? We get really stuck in how do I heal from something that's so traumatic that it exists in every part of my life, or rewrote my unconscious programming to be self-sabotaging. Oh, crap. It's really hard to get to that stuff, in my opinion, with other modalities. Energy and understanding my energy body is what really got me to those places, to understanding that it's about not the past, but or the people, but the pattern as it exists in you right now. Listen to that for a second. It's really important. It was really important to me, and I hope it helps, right? Everything you need for your healing is alive and well within you right now. You don't have to go to the past. You don't have to know the story. You don't have to know who did it. You don't even have to know the details. Sometimes that's helpful. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes we can get lost in those details and miss the point of it, right? Everything you need, every trauma, everything that's out of balance, every hurt, every fear, it is alive and well operating in your energy patterns. So you don't need to go way back there. We need to look right here, right now at how I'm reacting, responding, what my beliefs are about what's going to happen, what my expectations are, how I perceive myself, and how I operate because of how I perceive myself and other people, right? Those things are here and now. You don't have to go anywhere for those. Congratulations, Beth, your boyfriend on a year sober. Woo-hoo. Just catching up on comments really quick. Hey, Beth84. Gratitude. You say my trauma was my strongest lesson. It allowed me to understand it was someone else's fear. Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, when we talk about like the pirate ship and the aspects, facets of self, right, as these different sort of characters that we help create for ourselves, one of the most important pieces of that is to be able to look at something, whether it's anger or a specific behavior or a trigger or something, and to take it outside of me and see it from here and go, oh, it is not all of me, right? We're talking about the essence versus the facets. One thing that when we forget that we have a center, well, we have a core essence, and we identify too deeply with the facets of self, the emotional triggers, the ego, when we identify too deeply with those, we forget that essence, and we can get lost in all the ego games, and we can forget, I don't know who my guides are. I don't know what my intuition is. I can't feel it. I can't, I get stuck in cycles of patterns of triggers over and over and over again. It's essentially like saying, I am angry, right? When we say I am, that's a statement we use in meditation or meditative practices or mindfulness practices, that embodiment. It's about embodiment. I am. It is permanent. It doesn't have a temporal aspect, right? I exist as anger, versus saying, I am feeling angry right now. My favorite is to be like, oh, I'm feeling like that character within me, that pattern within me thought that, oh, I need to show up, right? Somebody cut us off on the road and road rage is like, I need to yell at them. I need to protect us, is what road rage is saying. I need to keep us safe. I need to tell them they're wrong so they don't do it again and keep somebody else safe. I need to control this situation because that was really scary. Now I can identify with that trigger, and I can yell at the other person and say nasty things and flip the bird and do whatever the heck I want, or drive crazy, or whatever it is, whatever the trigger makes you do. Why does it feel like it makes you do it? Because it triggers the unconscious pattern and negates your conscious thought. And we can measure this in the brain. When we are emotional, it moves our center, moves the brain activity to the lower parts of these other parts of the brain, not the prefrontal cortex. Hey, fuzzy zombie. Prefrontal cortex is where we can consider things and reflect on things and examine whether or not this is a good idea to yell at the other driver and whether or not that's really going to change anything. And right, that I'm conscious and present in the moment. When those emotions trigger, what they're asking me to do is to go back or to relive the pattern of fear that was worked into my system by those early experiences. And again, are they doing this because they're out to get me, or, anger is trying to make me look bad? No. It's an old pattern that's out of balance. The energy is doing the wrong job. I like to put it like that because it's pirates on my ship, right? This pirate is in the wrong position and he's not good at doing that job. It's my protector, yes, but my protector doesn't feel safe. So my protector is going to be out of balance and jump up and scream and be more aggressive because they're trying to find balance. That is my system asking me to be present, to be curious and willing. Whoa, somebody cut me off in traffic. And yes, my body went, and the reactivity is my belly gets hot and my jaw clenches and I feel my brow furrow. And I immediately think about, I hear the voice in my head that's yelling and screaming obscenities at this person, right? The question is, as the captain of my ship, or I always call myself the first mate. I consider my captain to be a much higher version of self. I'm the first mate between my wise captain and my crew, right? So my job as the first mate is to say, hey, pattern from when we were 2 or younger that said you're not safe in your body and wanted to scream and fight to keep us safe. I'm here now. We're not that, right? We don't need to do that. It's actually not going. We can start to have those discussions with ourselves. We can start to reflect on those. When we can pause before that energy lashes out, when we feel it rise. This is what mindfulness is about, and understanding our patterns is about, because then we can start to feel it rise and we go, whoa, that moment completely changed my posture, the tension in my body, the peace or not in my brain. Like, do you see how much control that outer situation seemed to have on me? And this was why I started doing this work, because I didn't like the idea of being out of control.